one stated in the rule nasi, or is if we requested to have that motion dismissed and then you put it pretrial. But I don't recall that taking place because that would have put his other case where Attorney Ward was on pretrial, and that was not the discussion to my understanding.
So,
Yeah, I don't recall us saying that this case was going to be pretrial.
Well,
So what's the issue?
well, Judge, my recollection to pretrial, Mr. Harris is here present. You know, we are prepared to go forward. I know that I did indicate that I wanted the officer to be present, and that's why my understanding was that it was going to be moved to pretrial. But you know,
And I was
we are willing to go forward. We're certainly ready to go forward. Mr. Harris is present via Zoom. My wanting to have
well, the gentleman in question, the witness in question, is my understanding, was coming off of a medical leave due to an on-the-job injury. So I thought we were trying to accommodate that, but you insisted that he be present, and the state got him present. So what's the issue?
And I'm not asking. I mean, I did ask that it be moved to pretrial, but Your Honor denied that, and we are prepared to go forward. And
Okay.
I mean, my preference, the reason I wanted it to be done pretrial is because I wanted to be able to question the officer from the witness stand with Your Honor present in the courtroom, be able to view that, you know, in this situation, it's easier for me to do this on Zoom, so I'm not standing next to the officer while questioning him, Judge, but I'm not jumping up and down about that and making objections, Judge. I'm ready to go forward in this situation, but
and I would just like to add to that point. I did have an opportunity to ask Ms. Arnold to look at the notes that was placed on the calendar last time it was on the court. This case was scheduled. There was no date set, is my understanding, but it was continued so that witnesses could be present. And so essentially that's what took place. When it's pretrial.
May I just make a point, Judge?
I'm sorry.
My understanding was this officer was out on an extended medical leave. And so you insisted that he be present. And I said, fine, we'll continue it until the officer can be present. Yes. They've made the officer present.
Yes, and Mr. Harris is present via Zoom, and he can waive his presence to this hearing.
That's not fair. You request, Your Honor, the defense requested for witnesses to be in person.
Yes, Mr. Harris.
Or Mr. Harris to be on his house while an officer is in court. The attorney is in court. The state is even in court because it's Mr. Tipton's motion. He is even in court. Everybody is in court in person except Mr. Harris. And they've requested us to have witnesses present in person.
Yes, and that is our right to request witnesses to be present in person. And Mr. Harris can waive his presence at this hearing. He is not a witness that's going to testify at this hearing. It's also unfair for Ms. Ponder and Mr. Tipton to double team me in this manner about this issue. I am I'm here ready to go forward on the motion. The officer is present. I'm not sure what the issue is. Mr. Harris can waive.
All right. So, okay, I've heard enough. We're going forward. So this is the state of Georgia versus Donnie Harris. Mr. Harris has two cases pending, but this is the particular case of case 2022 CR 01475. Mr. Harris is represented by the law firm of Lister, Holt & Dennis. Mr. Lynch, Owen Lynch, is present and representing Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris is not present in court, but he is present by Zoom, present by video. My understanding is from Mr. Lynch that he is not likely to testify in this matter.
Sector 4 Watch Office.
All right, whoever is speaking needs to mute. Mr. Harris, is charged with DUI less safe, driving under the influence, count 2, and traffic violation count 3. All right, are we ready to go forward on the motion to suppress?
We are, Judge. Before we go forward, I just wanted to mention to the court that we do have a stipulation in this case that the Officer Stigger's body cam video is admissible for the purposes of this hearing, to state.
That's fine. Body cam will be admitted into the record for this hearing, as stipulated.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, this is you'd like to call Officer Janelle Stiggers.
All right. So, Mr. Tipton, because of the limitations of the court reporter being on video, you have to make sure you direct your voice towards the camera. All right. Raise your right hand for me, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm any testimony you give in this matter will be true?
I do.
All right. Mr. Tipton, your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Excuse.
Officer, please state your name for the record.
I'm Sergeant Jamel Steger.
And Sergeant Stiggers, how are you currently employed?
I'm currently employed with the Clay County Sheriff's Office.
And prior to Clayton County, where were you employed?
I was employed with the Jonesboro Police Department.
How long were you with Jonesboro PD?
I was with Jonesboro Police Department approximately 4.5 years.
Okay. Did that include May of 2021?
I did.
Okay, thank you. Are you post-certified?
I am.
Being post-certified, are you authorized to investigate crimes, issue citations, and make arrests?
That's correct.
So did you have to complete mandated training to become post-certified?
That's correct.
Okay, when did that happen?
2019, December 2019.
Are you required to complete a certain number of hours of training per year to keep up your post-certification?
I am.
Okay, have you done this?
I have.
Have you always been post-certified since getting that initial post-certification in 2019?
Yes.
Okay. Are you trained in the detection of persons under the influence?
I am.
Can you briefly go over the training you've had?
While in mandate, we took the DUI course, which is I'm not sure how many hours it was, but there's a course that was added into my training to allow us to detect a person under influence of alcohol or drugs while operating a motor vehicle.
Okay. So I want to draw your attention to DUI arrests. Approximately how many have you made? Just give me a ballpark if you got it.
30 plus.
30 plus, okay. And did you use your training to effect these arrests?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to draw your attention to May 4th of 2021. Were you employed with Jonesboro PD at this time?
Yes.
Okay, and were you post-certified on this date?
Yes.
Were you on duty in uniform and in a marked patrol car?
Yes.
Okay, what were your duties that day, generally speaking?
I duties at that time, general patrol of the city, within the city limits of the city of Jonesboro.
Do you recall making contact with defendant Mr. Donnie Harris?
I do.
Okay. Can you tell me about first contact? About what time of the day was it?
It would have been nighttime.
Okay. And what were the weather conditions like?
It was raining and wet outside. I had my rain gear on.
Okay. So tell me about that initial contact. What was that initial contact like?
Initial contact with Mr. Harris was, he seemed to be agitated.
So why did you make contact with Mr. Harris? What did you observe as far as driving?
Mr. Harris had see through a fully established red light, but operating his vehicle by running a red light.
And did that cause you to be concerned about his driving?
It did,
Why is that?
because due to the weather conditions outside and the other people on the roadway, him running the red light posed a danger to the other citizens on the road.
So is that what caused you to make the traffic stop?
Yes.
Okay. When you first saw him and you mentioned he was agitated, did you notice anything about did you notice anything about his person?
When I first saw him, I noticed his eyes were glassy, but it's not necessarily a prime indicator. A lot of times, he's been older in age.
Okay, so when you initially made contact, what did you do after that?
I went back to my car with his information and ran it.
Mhm. And when you returned with the citation, what happened at that point?
When I returned the citation, due to the rain coming down and the citation being made of paper, I leaned into his vehicle a little bit more to explain the citation and to get him to sign it. And I was able to notice the odor alcohol coming from this person.
Okay. Did you ask the defendant if he'd been drinking that day?
I did.
What did he say?
He told me it was the day before.
Based on your investigation, did you investigate further? Based on what you saw so far, did you investigate further?
I did.
Okay, what was the next step in your evaluation?
My next step, due to the fact that we were in the construction zone and it was raining and we were on the side of the road, I asked him if he would be willing to provide a small sample of breath test, portable breath test.
How did he respond?
He told me he wouldn't give me that breath test, but he would give me blood.
Okay. Okay. And based on that, what did you do, sir?
And I called for another unit. I stood by. I called for another unit. When another unit arrived, he was taken in custody, and advised that he was in custody for this operation, as well as being under the influence. And he asked me if he was going to get blood. I told him when we get down to the jail, blood would be taken.
At that point, did you read him anything?
I did read him implied consent.
Okay, what color card did you read?
I agree.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to show you a recreation of an implied consent card. Is this the same card that you read?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, I'm going to be sending the court a copy of the implied consent card. It's just going to be this exact scan. It'll be sent by email. States admin.
You can send it to Ms. Martin, but that's fine, yes.
Thank you. Can you please tell me which portion of the card you read?
I read the portion that states implied consent notice for suspects age 21 or older.
Okay. Can you read to the court the portion of the card that you read?
I read implied consent notice for suspect age 21 or over. State of Georgia has condition and privilege to drive upon the highways of this state. Upon your submission to the state administered chemical test of your blood, breath, urine, or other bodily substance for the purpose to determine if you are under the influence of alcohol or drugs. If you refuse this state testing, your driver license or privilege to drive on the highways of this state will be suspended for a minimum period of 1 year. Your refusal to submit to blood or urine testing may be offered in the evidence against you at trial. If you submit the testing and the results indicate an alcohol concentration of 0.08 grams or more, your driver license or privilege to drive on the highways of this state may.
You're almost done. Click open file in the top right to continue.
Mr. Harris, I keep muting you because your sound is bleeding in. So just leave your device muted unless you need to speak, okay? Thank you. Go ahead.
At the first amendment, the requested state test, you are entitled to additional chemical tests of your blood, breath, or urine, or other bodily substance at your own expense from a qualified professional of your choosing. Will you submit to the state administered chemical test? And I've said blood.
I got you. And how did he respond to the test, to you asking for a test of his blood?
He'd already agreed, but he said fine.
Okay. And how was your tone of voice when you spoke to Mr. Harris?
Moderate, just normal, speaking normal.
Did you do anything did you act in a way that would have been threatening to you?
No.
Okay. Okay. Your Honor, at this point, I'm going to be playing the body cam footage of Mr. from Sergeant Stiggers. It'll be played. I'm sharing my screen off of my computer.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. And Your Honor, I've got some timestamps, just don't want to be going all over the place.
That's fine.
Your Honor, state is starting, the video will be starting at 0 minutes and 0 seconds, and we'll be stopping at 1 minute in.
Okay. Am I supposed to hear it too, Mr. Tipton?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. Is there an issue with the hearing? Is it?
I'm not hearing anything. Is anybody hearing any of the ambient noise from the video?
Wait for a second, the volume just cut off.
Looks like it's only coming from my computer, Your Honor. One moment.
How you doing today, sir? My name's Officer Jonesville Police Department. The reason I stopped you because you ran the red light. You have your driver's license with you today?
Man, I didn't mean to run that day. I'm talking online with my fiance.
Judge, can you hear it now?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Give me one moment. I'll be right with you, okay?
State is stopping at 1 minute. That was the initial contact. Resuming at 5 minutes and 4 seconds, and will play until roughly 12 minutes and 20 seconds.
All right, sir. You've been issued a citation for beating the traffic control device. You have a court.
Listen, can you
You have a
just
court
give me
date set for
warning?
the 28th of
Oh
June
my God, man,
at 2
can you
p.m. at
please just give
170
me a
South Main
warning?
Street. If you choose to take care of your citation ahead of time, you can utilize the phone number on the website on the back side of your copy. You can just sign here and sign not mission get this thing. Give me a copy of the citation, okay? What's that, sir? You're not gonna sign it? Let me ask you a question. I can detect the odor of alcohol coming from you, bro. When's the last time you had a drink?
Shit, I don't know. Yesterday.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
Okay, why does it still smell like you have the odor of alcohol coming from your breath
No,
today?
I didn't have no alcohol. Man, listen to me. I was on the phone with my fiance who was on in Philippines, and she had just freaking called me, man.
1615.
Yeah, I
You start me at 74 and rep to 30.
Please, sir. Please, I worked in law enforcement for 23 years. Can you just give me a fucking... I just
All right,
moved
sit
here
tight
from
for me, okay?
Colorado, please.
Sit tight for me, okay?
Huh?
Hey, give me one moment, all right?
Can you just give me a warning, man? I worked in law enforcement for 23 years. For 23 years, man, I was on the phone. She just called me, man. I answered the phone. I went through the fucking the light.
Okay.
Lord, have mercy, man. Can you please? I'm
Come on, I got-
begging you, please. Just give me a warning, please, sir.
Unfortunately, I already printed a citation, so can't give you a warning on that, but I have to figure out what's going on with this smell of alcohol coming from you, bro. So give me a moment,
I don't have
okay?
no alcohol, man.
You haven't had any alcohol? All right, well, I know due to the weather conditions out here right now, will you be willing to provide a small sample of your breath to a portable breath, and just whether or not you had a present alcohol on your breath or not?
Man, my fiance's in it. God, Lord have mercy. I cannot win for losing in the state,
I'm just asking you
man.
a question. Are you willing to do so?
Do what? Say,
I said, are you willing to provide a small breath sample of your breath to determine whether or not you had
I'll do
the presence of alcohol in your breath or not?
I'll do a blood,
a blood?
yeah, I'll do a blood.
So you willing to give blood, but you're not willing to give a small breath sample?
I'll do a blood analyzer, man.
Like I said, well, we don't have to go as far as blood if you can provide a small breath sample.
I'll do a blood analyzer.
You know, blood? Okay.
Man, please give me a
I
blood.
was wondering why you didn't pull over in the gas station and kind of
Well, hell, you just.
Well, I put it. Well, we had blue lights on for a minute. I didn't.
No,
know.
no.
They were on for a minute.
I'm trying to find a safe place to put it.
You could have brought us to the gas station. You gonna pull into the gas station?
You just hit me, man.
Who?
You.
I hit you with what? Huh? With the blue lights? I didn't. I turned the lights on. They didn't hit you. They just on.
Man, give me the citation.
Huh?
Give me the citation.
Like I said, I'm asking you the simple part. Are you willing to provide a breath sample? You told me you want to get blood, so.
Good for that.
Huh?
Good.
You only do blood? Alright, like I said, due to weather conditions and. Alright, give me a moment, okay?
Man, I just moved here from Colorado. This is the freaking third ticket I've had, and I'm not even fucking at fault here, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did go through the ticket, go through the light, and I realized that at the fucking, my lady called me.
I understand.
Man, no, you don't. No, you don't. You're not able to.
Okay, I tried to give him a ticket, but then, I had to lean in and keep him wet. I said, alright. He started arguing with me, and he started yelling. I'm like, oh, okay. So I said, sir, I can detect all the alcohol content breath. I said, have you had any alcohol? He said, yesterday. I said, okay. I said, well, due to the weather conditions right now, so you would provide a portable breath sample to determine whether or not you have any on your breath or not. He said, I get blood. Alright. Sir, let me get you on to step out for me, okay?
What?
Get you to step out the car for me. What's with the peppermint?
All right.
You got any weapons or anything on you? Okay, well, you're gonna be placed in custody today for operating a motor vehicle in an unsafe manner, okay?
Unsafe manner.
Sir, don't resist, okay? Yeah, the less safe act that I observed was you running that red light, and then due to the fact that I can detect all the alcohol coming from your breath, like I said, I asked you if you're willing to provide a breath sample. You told me you get blood, so we're gonna go ahead. That's fine. When you get that jail, since you agreed to go get blood, you can get blood at the jail, okay?
Can I roll the windows up?
We'll get that taken care of in a second, okay? Let me get you step over here out of the way of the public, out of the way to the. I'm just gonna pat you down, make sure you don't have any weapons or anything on you, okay? Is this your glasses?
Yeah.
What's this? iPods? Alright, then come this way for me.
Well, don't drag me, man.
I'm not dragging you. You're kind of stumbling a little bit on me.
No, I'm not. You're dragging me, man.
Well, on the move fast, and you moving, rocking back and forth for some reason.
No,
Sure.
I'm not moving back and forth, man.
Okay, well, go on and get a step in for me, okay?
Can you please, like, roll up the windows of my
We're gonna
vehicle?
take that in a second. Once I do all that, once I get you in the car and secured in the car. I'll take that off for you. Gonna dip your head in there for
Can
me.
you slide this seat up a little bit?
Ain't no sliding the seat up. It's a cage. It don't move. So you gotta slide. You gotta slide yourself in there. There you go. Now, let me get the other foot in there for me. That's good enough. Oh, make sure you get your foot in there.
Wait a minute.
There you go. Should be enough. There you go.
State is pausing the video at 12 minutes and 23 seconds. State will restart the video at 13 minutes and 13 seconds.
right, sir, I gotta read this to you even though you agreed already, but I have to still read it, okay?
Man, these cuffs are hurting my hand.
I understand. Give me a moment.
Can I get
This
out?
is apply consent notice for age 21 years or older. The state of Georgia has conditioned your privilege to drive upon the highways of this state upon the submission to the state administered chemical test of your blood, breath, urine, or other bodily substance for the purpose of determining if you're under the influence of alcohol or drugs. If you refuse this testing, your Georgia driver license privilege to drive on the highways of this state will be suspended for a minimum period of 1 year. Your refusal to submit to blood or urine testing may be often evident against you at your trial. If you submit to the testing and the results indicate an alcohol concentration of 0.08 grams or more, your Georgia driver license or privilege to drive on the highways of this state may be suspended for a minimum period of 1 year. After first submitting to the requested state test, you're entitled to an additional chemical test of your blood, breath, urine, or other bodily substance at your own expense and from a qualified professional of your choosing. Will you submit to state administered chemical test of your blood?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
State is stopping the video at 14 minutes and 24 seconds. So Officer Stiggers, after reviewing that video, how would you describe the defendant's demeanor?
And he was in an agitated state with associated with the possibility of being under influence at the time. He was slurred speaking. I don't know what he was stating a lot of time.
Okay. You didn't initially detect the odor of alcohol. Why were you able to determine it later?
I got closer and got inside the vehicle a little bit closer. Initially, when I got to the car, I didn't even get close to the window. With traffic, due to traffic, I was standing at the point where I could see traffic come from behind me.
And did this all occur in Jonesboro?
It did.
And is that complete? And was that within Clayton County?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions at this time.
Cross-examination, Mr. Lynch?
Yes, one moment, Your Honor. I want to go back to the. No, it's on your last one. Can you help me with that?
Yes.
Do I need to- Okay. Excuse me, this is a little bit different. So Officer Stiggers, you testified about DUI detection training that you had undergone prior to making that arrest. Is this correct?
That's correct.
And I don't want to be inaccurate, but I believe that you indicated that the training that you received was in the academy.
Yes, it was another class attached just to get it out of the way while we were in the academy.
Okay. And as part of that, as part of that training, were you trained in standardized field sobriety testing?
I was.
Is it accurate to say that standardized field sobriety testing is a tool in your tool belt to determine if someone is a less safe driver if you have that suspicion?
It's a portion of the bill.
Okay. Now, I want to move back to the initial contact that you had with Mr. Harris. So you initially pulled him over because you testified you observed a red light violation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you turned on your blue lights, right?
That's correct.
And Mr. Harris pulled over to the side of the road. Is that correct?
Yes.
While he was pulling over to the side of the road, observe any additional traffic violations, did you?
I didn't note any addition.
You did not note any additional traffic violations. And when you approached Mr. Harris and asked him for his driver's license, he produced that to you promptly. Isn't that correct?
I would say you did.
Okay. And at that point, you returned to your car and issued him a citation for running a red light. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you returned to the car, you presented him with the citation and told him that you were going to be citing him for running a red light, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And at that point, he initially indicated that he didn't want to sign the citation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And immediately after he said that he wasn't going to sign the citation, your statement to him was, "You're not going to sign it. Okay. I smell the odor of alcohol on you. Can I, how much have you been drinking?" Isn't that correct?
I don't think that's in that meeting.
I believe your exact statement is, "What's that, sir? You're not going to sign it? Let me ask you something, sir. I can smell the odor of alcohol on you. When was the last time you had a drink?" Isn't that correct?
I said that what it is.
Correct. And that's that statement was made immediately after he indicated that he was not going to sign the citation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned at this point that it was raining outside, right?
Well,
Was it raining at the
Yeah.
time? Okay. Now, when you pulled over Mr. Harris, you indicated that, he could have pulled over into the Quick Trip gas station right there on Terra Boulevard, isn't that right?
That's correct.
And you're familiar with that Quick Trip, right?
Yes,
Probably go there often since it's right next to the Clayton County.
not necessarily.
Okay. We'll come back to that. So immediately after that, you indicated to Mr. Harris that because you smelled the odor of alcohol, that you were going to have to do a further investigation as to why you smelled alcohol on his breath. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you told him that due to the weather conditions, would you be willing to take a portable breath sample?
That's correct.
And he told you that he would not, he would do a blood test, but he didn't want to take a portable breath sample, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And at that point, you talked to another officer who had arrived in the situation to him, right?
Yes.
Okay. And after talking to that other officer, you instructed Mr. Harris to exit his vehicle, correct?
That's correct.
And at that time, or shortly thereafter, in a matter of seconds, you placed Mr. Harris under arrest, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So you mentioned that you were trained in standardized field sobriety testing.
That's correct.
In this case, so you've been trained on how to conduct horizontal gaze nystagmus, is that correct?
I was.
And that's an important test because out of those 3 standardized field sobriety tests, it's the only scientific test that provides an objective indication of alcohol level and perhaps impairment. Is that correct?
And it doesn't suggest alcohol level.
Okay, fair enough. But it is an important tool in your tool belt to be able to determine whether someone may have alcohol in their system.
They may be impaired under something.
Okay, okay. Could be as some other CNS depressant, right?
That's correct.
Okay. You chose not to conduct the horizontal gaze nystagmus test in this arrest, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You chose not to conduct the divided attention test, namely the walk and turn and the one leg stand, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And your reasoning for that is because it's raining, is that correct?
That was not my reason.
Okay, what was your reason?
My reasoning was the totality of the situation and location where we were.
Okay. So you instructed Mr. Harris, well, other than Mr. Harris running the red light and your claim that you smelled alcohol on his breath, you did not develop any further, or you did not do any further investigation into whether Mr. Harris was in fact impaired.
I did.
And what was that investigation?
He agreed to give me blood, so the next step would have been to take blood and once we got blood to indicate whether he had alcohol.
A blood test is a state chemical test, is that correct?
Yes.
And a state chemical test is not administered in an arrest, isn't that correct?
Not necessarily.
In this case, he was arrested and then you read him implied consent, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
No, he agreed to blood, then he was arrested.
Okay. Do you think his agreement to give a blood sample is evidence that he was impaired?
Now the smell is the evidence.
Okay. And I believe you wrote a report in this case, isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
And in your report, and if you need to refresh your recollection, I can show you your report. You did not indicate that when you first made contact with Mr. Harris that his eyes were glossy, did you?
I did not.
Okay. You also indicated in your report that his refusal to give you a portable breath sample was one of the reasons why you arrested him. Isn't that correct?
No, I told him I was listening. I just wanted the totality of why I made the decision to detain him.
Okay. Now, is there something in your training that says you cannot conduct standardized field sobriety tests while it's raining?
Yes, during the training, it was officer's discretion to use reason and the location and the surroundings of where you were to not do certain things that would either put other public in safety in question or put that person in jeopardy of being in an unsafe place.
Okay, so you could have used your discretion to move the investigation into the Quick Trip parking lot where there was a roof where you could safely conduct these tests in a dry environment, but you chose not to do that.
No,
Is
sir.
that correct?
I wouldn't make that move
Why not?
because I wouldn't have I would have to leave his car there, and if I would have determined that his car got hit or something due to that not having blue lights behind it, so.
Well, you could have put him in the back of your car and transported him.
Objection, Your Honor. The defense counsel's testifying at this point.
Sustained.
Couldn't you have transported him to the Quick Trip parking lot and done standardized field sobriety tests there?
Not necessarily.
What do you mean by not necessarily?
The Quick Trip parking lot was on the opposite side of the road, and the only way to get to that road now and turn around and come back to the scene would have been pointless.
Why would it have been pointless?
Because the next parking lot would have been further up, would have been more feasible than going backwards.
So you had two parking lots you could have chose to go to.
Yeah, that's correct, but the defendant could also pull into a parking lot.
Just to go back, you did ask him if you had anything to drink in this investigation, right?
That's correct.
And he told you that he hadn't had anything to drink.
That's correct.
You know, I'm gonna have this one moment.
You may.
When you initially were presenting him with the citation, you did not suspect that he was an impaired driver at that time, isn't that right?
And I'm not sure on the question.
When did you first suspect that Mr. Harris was an impaired driver?
After I leaned in to give the sign ticket, he started speaking back, smell the odor coming from his breath.
Okay. And so you smelled the odor of an alcoholic beverage, and that triggered a suspicion that he may be impaired.
Yes.
And from that time until he was placed under arrest, you did not do any field sobriety tests, correct?
Yeah, due to location and
No questions.
Your Honor, may the state redirect?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. So Officer Stiggers, walk me through an ideal place to do standardized field sobriety tests.
an ideal place would be a location where the subject would be in a place where you'd be away from traffic, at least block the area where you can't get on directly from traffic with other patrol cars. But where we were at that time of day was on a hill in a construction zone. It would have been raining outside in the time of day. With it dark, it would have been it wasn't ideal to conduct anything out there.
As an officer, how important is safety to you?
Very safe.
Okay. Whose safety were you concerned with during the stop?
I'm concerned with everybody's safety, mine's, the offenders, the general public at large that are passing by, anybody driving by the road.
Mhm. And at the time, you were able to, you made the determination that it was unsafe, correct?
That's correct.
Walk me through all the unsafe things you saw.
Standing water on the ground, the orange construction cones to the right of my vehicle that we were in. Another part is that we have to remove our blue lights from the front of our vehicle in order to conduct HDN. And due to the fact that it's dark outside, that takes the availability 500 feet away. Some of the 500 feet away from the vehicle's ability to be seen at 500 feet when we have to turn certain lights off.
Why do you turn those lights off?
Because it's been known that the lights affect the outcome of the person being tested for HDN.
How heavy was traffic?
It was like,
But were cars passing?
yes,
Did those cars have their lights on?
they did,
Based on your knowledge, training, and experience, could those lights affect HDN?
they can.
Okay. Now, the other tests are walk and turn. And I'm sorry, what are the other two tests?
One is walk and turn, and the other one is the one leg stand.
You mentioned standing water. How would standing water have affected those tests?
He could have slipped and fell.
Could that have potentially injured him?
That's correct.
I also want to ask, what were your safety concerns? Do any of these tests require the defendant to move his body?
They all, two of them do the walk and turn, and the one leg stand, not necessarily, but we have to place them in a safe area.
Ask for cars.
The speed limit on that roadway is 45, and entering the construction zone is supposed to go down to 35, but it's not necessarily known that they will slow down.
Based on your knowledge, training, and experience, could someone get injured if they were hit by a vehicle that was traveling 35 miles or faster?
Yes,
So you offered to have him take a PBT test.
I did.
What would you have done if you would have taken the PBT test and it came back negative for alcohol?
He would have been allowed to drive on.
Did you make this stop intending to arrest?
No. So I could have arrested him anytime on any citation.
So you mentioned that when I first asked you about his speech, how did you describe his speech?
His speech was a little on the
I'm gonna
slow.
object, ask and answer.
Overruled. Overruled.
Overruled. Okay, so how did you describe his speech,
His speech was a little on a slurred and slower response.
and how did you describe his eyes?
Glassy.
And how close were you when you first detected the odor of alcohol?
I was about a foot away from the vehicle, and I never really passed the B pillar.
Okay. And when you detected the odor of alcohol, did you relate that back to your earlier observations?
Yes.
I have no further questions at this time.
Any recross?
Just briefly. You had never spoken to Mr. Harris before this incident, hadn't you?
Not that I know of.
So you don't know how he normally speaks, do you?
Not necessarily.
He had a mask over his mask, didn't he? I mean, a mask covering his mouth while he was talking to you, did he not?
He had a cotton mask.
I believe you just testified that if he would have tested negative for alcohol in his breath, he would have let him just drive away, right?
He would have drove away with the citation for running red light.
Okay, no further questions.
All right, anything else for this witness, Mr. Tipton?
No, Your Honor. State rests at this time.
May this witness be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Officer Stiggers, you're free to go at this time. Be safe.
Thank you.
Can we X this just so I can have a bigger screen, just to make me feel better?
Yes, of course.
All right, state may call its next witness.
Your Honor, state rests at this time.
All right, defense has witnesses to call in this case.
Your Honor, defense will not be calling witnesses or presenting evidence.
All right, I'll hear argument.
Thank you, Judge. Judge, as you well know, probable cause to arrest exists in Georgia when the objective facts known to the officer establish a probability that the suspect has been engaged in illegal activity. A probability is less than a certainty, but more than a mere suspicion or possibility. So under the totality of circumstances, you have to look at what evidence do you have that he was an impaired driver. One of the chief things the state is going to focus on is the fact that the officer testified that he ran a red light. With reference to that, I would like to call the court's attention to State v. Blanchard. That is a Court of Appeals case, May 18th, 2016. That's 337 Georgia App 130. And I want to, so in this case, the defendant had driven through a red light, and the officer, which was a fatal accident, and the officer had found a number of pills on him. In the analysis, the court indicates that the fact that a traffic violation occurred by itself does not establish probable cause that someone is under the influence of alcohol. Of course, you have to go to the totality of the circumstances. Additionally, Judge D'Amato v. State, which is in my motion, establishes that the smell of alcohol, even with an admission to consuming alcohol, does not establish probable cause to make an arrest for DUI. But the state is going to, I would anticipate that the state is going to argue that those two things together establish probable cause, Your Honor. However, you have the ability to assess the credibility of the witness in this case, and also to make determination if the officer had actually developed probable cause. Now, when he smelled the odor of alcohol, he indicated that he had a suspicion that he was possibly an impaired driver. However, he did not develop that suspicion further into probable cause. There was no additional investigation that took place. He was immediately put into custody. He was immediately,
We're gonna skip over that whole PBT test?
Yeah, no, Judge, I'll mention the PBT. So,
Well, I mean, because you can't go to, okay, red light, ran the red light, and then smell of alcohol. Those are not sufficient. And he did nothing else until he read him until he arrested him. If you don't tell me the case, tell me the case.
Sure, Judge. So when it comes to the PBT, as you're aware, a refusal to submit to a PBT test is not admissible under Elliott v. State. Additionally, he did.
Well, it might not be admissible, but it when you're talking about the totality of the circumstances, somewhere that has to factor in.
So I would disagree, Judge, because it is my client exercising his right not to produce evidence against himself, which the courts have held is not admissible and should not be used against a defendant in a criminal case.
I get that. But what you're asking for is a determination of whether what the officer perceived was sufficient. Right. He may not have based his suspicion on the refusal for a PBT, but in the refusal for a PBT, your client then says, no, give me a blood test. And he indicated during the course of their discourse that he had been in law enforcement for 26 years. And so being in law enforcement for 26 years, he knows the implications of saying, oh, yeah, well, don't give me this. The less invasive test, which we can do on the side of the road and I can be on my way, give me a blood test.
So, Judge, I understand the point that you're making, but what I would suggest is that the fact that he didn't indicate that, or he didn't agree to take the PBT may have justified the officer in doing further investigation, but it does not itself establish probable cause, and it should not be considered in the totality of the circumstances. He also indicated that he would take a blood test, as you mentioned, Judge. So what you're left with, Judge, is a traffic violation. You know, I would object to the court considering the refusal and using that against Mr. Harris under the totality of the circumstances, because it is not admissible, and Georgia law says that that should not be
That's not
considered.
what I said, first of all, it might not be admissible, but you cannot escape the fact that certain indicators will factor into what an officer is going to consider. And I don't care what the case law says with respect to what is admissible at court, because you can't be in the officer's mind. But what I will say is you can't make this argument to me without at least mentioning he was offered a PBT, because even if it's not admissible, he was offered it. So that's an indication of further investigation. And when he was offered a PBT, even though he refused it, he then offers himself a blood test. He says, give me a blood test. And so that part, at least, arguably may be considered.
Okay, Judge, and I understand your point. I'm not going to go back and forth with you on that. We concede that he refused to take the PBT test. But the argument still remains, Judge, that
you're missing my point.
No additional evidence of impaired driving.
The PBT, but then he offers a blood test.
Judge, and I understand that, but the offer of the blood test, he agreed to it, but that is not evidence of his impairment. The state has the burden to prove that there was probable cause, not that he was a less safe driver, that he was a less safe driver because of the consumption of alcohol. Without the PBT, there's no that there was the presence system beyond the smell of alcohol. There's no open containers indicating that he had consumed alcohol. There are no admissions indicating that he had consumed alcohol on that day. So, Judge, I understand your point about the PBT. However, the argument is still that the standard of probable cause was not met by this investigation. There was a traffic offense observed, according to the officer's testimony. He pulled him over. He said that he smelled the odor of alcohol, but there were no testimony about physical stations. There were no field sobriety tests to confirm the suspicion that he was under the influence of alcohol. There's no objective scientific testing to establish the presence of alcohol in his system. Judge, there was basically no investigation beyond the point of, I smell alcohol. Okay, you're not going to take the PBT. You're under arrest, Judge. So for those reasons, Judge, we're asking that you suppress the blood result in this case, any evidence that was obtained after the arrest, because the arrest was made without probable cause. And that's the argument, Judge.
All right, let me hear from the state.
Yes, Your Honor. So, Your Honor, with regard to the stop of the red light, I'd like to bring the court's attention to Landwehr, LANWEHR v. State. That's 265 Georgia App 359. In that case, running a red light was considered to be probable cause for the stop. Further, Your Honor, any type of traffic violation, even if it's just a single traffic violation, is enough for a stop. I'd bring the court's attention to Friedland, FREEDLAND v. State, 223 Georgia App 326, which stated that a speeding is or any type of traffic violation would be judged for a stop.
I don't think we're questioning the probable cause for the actual stop. We're questioning probable cause for the investigation and arrest for driving under the influence, let's say.
Yes, Your Honor. And state was just getting to that point, Your Honor. The totality of the circumstances under Steinberg v. State, 286 Georgia App 417. The court must in these cases consider that the police officer had a particularized objective basis for suspecting that the person stopped was DUI. In this case, we have slurred speech. We have slurred speech. We have a very person. He is, his eyes are watery. He's acting in a way that I myself consider to be kind of irrational, in that he was, his volume was going all over the place. The officer went into detail about the smell, the slur, and the eyes. Now, the defense has honed in on an absence of standardized field sobriety tests. I wanted to bring the court's attention to Kellogg v. State 288, Georgia App 265. In that case, there were watery eyes, there was an admission and odor of alcohol. That enough at a roadblock was reason for for probable cause to be found without standardized field sobriety tests. Here we don't have the admission of alcohol use, but we do have an unsafe act. Further, Your Honor, State v. Young 334 Georgia App 161 includes that states that the court may consider driving behavior, refusal to take field sobriety tests, or an officer's observations. We don't have standardized field sobriety tests because of safety. Exclusively because of safety. The officer was not attempting to circumvent field sobriety. In fact, field sobriety tests. In fact, he was willing to let the defendant go if he would have given a negative breath sample. If we look at Schlanger v. State 290 Georgia App 407, visible manifestations on their own are sufficient to show probable cause. In our case, we have visible manifestations and an observed less safe act. Further, Your Honor, I do think that it is appropriate for the court to consider the refusal in this case, because it's not a refusal to make a statement. It actually stated that he would just make a different type of statement. Ergo, I don't think that Elliott would apply in this case. Our case is sufficiently different in that Elliott was a total refusal to make a statement. This is not a refusal to make a statement, but a decision to take a different test. And for that, Your Honor, the state requests that the court deny the defense's motion and not suppress any of the evidence. Thank you.
All right, so per the totality of the circumstances, the observation, the officer indicated that he initially dealt with Mr. Mr. Harris. He walked away to verify his information. He came back with the citation. As he got closer, he smelled the smell of alcohol on his breath. He said to Mr. Harris, "Hey, I smell alcohol on your breath. When was the last time you had a drink?" Mr. Harris responds with, yesterday. And so he said, yesterday. So he continues to talk to him, and he indicates that he felt like he was slurring his speech a little bit. He noted the glassy eyes, but he said that could have been because he was older. So he did not go straight to he's impaired. He said, I noted he had glassy eyes, but hey, that happens with older people. So that's a consideration of the factors as opposed to just jumping to a conclusion. He then talks to him about, would you, it's raining outside. Would you be willing to take a portable breath test? All the while the officer is talking to Mr. Harris, Mr. Harris has a running commentary. A Filipino girlfriend I was on the line with my Filipino girlfriend, and man, I've been in law enforcement for 26 years. I need just give me a warning. Just give me a warning. Oh my God, oh my, and he is agitated. Talking about he's been in law enforcement. Just give me a warning. He's practically begging the entire time. The officer's demeanor never changes. He's straightforward. He's even a little bit lighthearted, kind of, like, hey, let's keep going with what we're doing. So he's agitated. He's referring to having had other, he's just like, I can't get another ticket. Give me a warning. Give me a warning. So when the officer says, well, sir, if you're willing to take a portable breath test, then, I can give that to you here on the side of the road. And he says, no, I'm not taking a breath test. Get that. If you're saying it's a refusal subject to Elliott, fine. But what he then says is, no, give me a blood test. He makes the request. So the officer says, 4 more times. Are you sure? Because it's just it's just blown into the little tube. I can give you a PBT. No, I want a blood test. Are you sure you want a blood test? Yes, I want. He verifies it like 4 or 5 times. Then the other officer arrives on the scene. He reports to that other officer. He was like, yeah, I offered him a PBT, but he said he wants a blood test. So he said, we're looking at ran the red light, smell, slurred speech, glassy eyes, which he says could have been attributed to age, but that could factor in there. The agitation, the begging for a warning as opposed to a ticket. I'm in law enforcement, just talking the entire time. And so at this point, the officer says, well, sir, you've asked for a blood test. In order to do that, I have to put you under arrest, take you to the courthouse, take you to the jail. But I'm going to read you implied consent. He reads him the appropriate implied consent, verifies again, asks if if he, would take a chemical test, which is blood, and verifies again. And once again, the gentleman says yes. Even if we take out the PBT, the other factors, case law is replete with indicators of the other factors being sufficient for probable cause for further investigation after a traffic stop, especially if the traffic stop wasn't initially for DUI. There may not have been enough probable cause to stop him for being an impaired driver. But he did run through a red light in the middle of a rainstorm. So after he had probable cause to stop him, at that point, his indicators start to tally up. And so at this point, the court believes that the officer had the requisite probable cause to conduct the investigation that he did and to continue the investigation with respect to reading him implied consent and noting that he believed that Mr. Harris was impaired. And so at this point, this court is going to deny the motion to suppress.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Judge, I believe that concludes Lister